Hey everyone, welcome back. We are on episode 7 of Melody's 15 years. We're going 15 years through her cancer journey from 15 years ago to present day. Welcome, Melody.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about anxiety, depression, asking for help. We touched on therapy a little bit last time, but we're going to kind of get into some of the more specifics this time. When do you know you need to ask for help? What kinds of help there are? So, in your cancer journey, when was the first time you knew that you needed help more so than just your family and friends?
It took me a long time to know that I needed help and to admit that I needed help. I was probably 2 years into the journey uh, because I wasn't handling it well. Had marital problems. My diagnosis was spilling over into the marriage. So we started off with marriage counseling, and that didn't go anywhere because it wasn't addressing my underlying issues of dealing with my cancer, and it wasn't really addressing his underlying issues of my cancer and the potential loss of my life. So uh, it was about 2 years in that I got a program going.
And I'm sure that was hard to admit that you needed help. Where did you start?
Um, well, it was really kind of difficult to do that. I had had a lot of therapy in my past, so I wasn't opposed to it. I know it was helpful, but I kind of had to get forced into it. The things were just falling apart, and when your life starts falling apart, you get this kind of helpless feeling, and you need more. You need some help, and you ask this person and that person, and you get the same happy response. Oh, well, you've gone through so much. You'll be okay. Just give it some time. You'll be fine. But I never was fine. I always felt like there was just something not right. And those were kind of my warning signs when I was very reactive. I was very emotional. I was also not enjoying the things that I used to love to do. So with all of that, it made things more difficult for me to go on with my daily life because everything was just sad. I was just sad all the time. Nothing was happy, and I was bringing the other people around me down with my sadness. And I knew that that was time when I had to fix me.
And I think we've come a long way in how, as a society, we look at therapy. Nowadays, everyone's like, I go to therapy just because I'm perfectly fine, but I just want to, be proactive. And it's therapy's everywhere now. But back then, that wasn't the case, right?
No, that was not the case. If you were in therapy, there was something really wrong with you. And then you didn't talk about it much because people look down on you. What do you mean? Why can't you handle this all on your own? Why can't you be strong enough? And I don't think it has anything to do with being strong enough. It means that, you just need some help working stuff out because I have the personality that I bottle things up. I don't express when I'm upset, I'm sad, I'm angry, and I bottle it up until I explode. And the explosion is usually not good. It usually is bad, and it's not directed at the people it needs to be directed at. So then it becomes harmful to the relationships that you have. But I didn't talk about going to therapy. I just did it and was quiet
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, because it's nobody's business but your own. So,
Yeah.
how did you start the process of looking for a therapist? Did you know what kind you wanted? There's so many kinds. I mean, that's I think a big mountain right there. Just where do you start to find someone?
Well, I think because I started off with the marriage counseling, which made me realize that's not what we needed. Because that they're giving you homework on communication and all that, but when you've got resentment built up and there's all these other things, the marriage counseling doesn't work. You got to fix what's underlying first. So I started with my health insurance because obviously I had to get one that was approved by my health insurance. And they gave me a long list, and I called around to see who was available. And of course, there weren't that many available. Most of them were booked or not taking new appointments. So I did find two, and one was a man and one was a woman. And I didn't much care for the guy. Not, it didn't have anything to do with that he was a man. It was just, he was a little more abrupt, and he was a little more, let's figure this out. How are you feeling today? And I was like, I don't know how I'm feeling today. How do I don't know anything. I can't tell you how I'm feeling today. I'm anxious, I'm sad, I'm all these things, it didn't really help. So then I went to a woman who had a little bit different approach, where she was looking more at personalities and how you deal with personalities, and how your personality handles trauma, and that seemed to fit me better. She wasn't really a trauma therapist, but she looked at, she assessed my personality and made me take a personality test, kind of, and found that I have a reactive personality. And so when something goes wrong, I react immediately before my brain has a chance to engage. So I had to do a lot of work on that. But that was helpful, because it kind of helped steer me into what was going on. And then we could work on how I was reacting, and then we could work on the issues. So it wasn't a quick fix. It took maybe 9 months of searching and going through the motions and trying this one and trying that one till I really settled in with somebody that fit me.
I think that's such an important point to bring up because we've talked about that with doctors as well as therapists before. Get a second opinion, shop around. If you're
Mhm.
not clicking, don't feel guilty just because it's the first person you've tried and you have to stay there. You can keep going and find. And, we also said recently in an episode, there's different kinds of therapy. You might do talk therapy and realize that's not for you. You might want to try something more spiritual or more, I don't know, there's a million kinds. So I like that you're highlighting that you did change people, try something else.
Yeah, you don't always mesh with people anyway, and it's like we talked last episode about meshing with your doctor. You got to mesh. You got to find somebody that you enjoy going to see somewhat. I mean, it's never pleasant, but at the same time, if you have a good relationship with them, it makes going less painful, and then you're more apt to stick with it.
Definitely. And then when she understands you, and I think the personality test is huge. I think understanding yourself, a lot of us don't understand ourselves. I mean, I think once you start doing those self exploration things and you start learning about yourself, you go, oh, that's why I do that. I had no idea. I just thought I was like that. And you realize, no, you're not like that. Usually there's a trigger, and you can usually get to the bottom of why you get there. So I do think it's fascinating. What kind of tools did she give you to work with that maybe you could share?
Books, a lot of books. I can't tell you all the names of the books now, but there's probably many better ones out there. But she gave me some very small books to read where I could understand more about my reactive personality. She gave me books to read about personality disorders that my ex-husband seemed to have had, but was never formally diagnosed because he didn't stick with therapy. But it helped me to understand some of more of how to approach him, because when you have two reactive type personalities, it ends up with explosions. Um, and while we were both somewhat sympathetic people, he was less sympathetic than I was, and I was looking for sympathy. I was looking for the, um, the pat on the back. It's going to be okay. My mother was alive at that time, and she was also not that person. She was going through dementia, so but she was not that person. She was never the person that was understanding. She was the, you know, you can do this. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and just go on, and you'll get through. And when you feel inside like you're kind of fading away, that's not helpful. It's kind of difficult when people don't understand that you feel inside that you're fading away, and you kind of have a loss of control, or whatever the situation is. Everybody is a little different. That was my thing. I felt like I didn't have any control over anything. I felt I was kind of slipping away, and everything was just falling apart. um, the other tools that she gave me that were really helpful was tools to understand my personality. And it doesn't mean that I have a bad personality. I just react one way. Some people react very emotionally and they cry, and they get upset. Some people are very quiet and they retreat. Some people get angry. I don't necessarily react angrily, but I just react without thinking. And sometimes my reactions come off as sharp, aggressive, but they don't ever they rarely come across as emotional, because I'm not getting what I need and I'm trying to get what I need. But I don't know. I did not at the time know how to say, look, this is what I need, because I really didn't know what I need. So she gave me homework where I had to talk about what I needed. What was a perfect day? What was a perfect answer? And so those little homework sheets that she gave me that were quick and easy, but they were helpful because it helped me look at what I really thought was a perfect day.
Yeah, and I think it helps you advocate for yourself. And we talk about advocating all the time, also,
Yeah.
and a same for your emotions. And that is so hard. I think that's for me one of the hardest things is to say how I feel, what I need, because I don't want to, because I'm a retreat kind of person. If I'm not happy, if I don't like something, I just back away and walk and, put myself in a bubble and take care of myself. And I have a very hard time with voicing things. So I think that is a huge piece that I think a lot of people struggle with is just being able to say what they need without fear of, being judged or ridiculed or, whatever else reaction they think they might get.
And I think it helps you to know how to react, take a couple breaths before you say something. Don't just fly off the handle, basically, is it, whether it's emotionally crying or angrily yelling or just having a conversation when it's not the right time to have a conversation. That's also one of the things that I learned was it's okay to check out and come back, because I thought from previous therapy I had had that you had to sit down at the table and you had to figure it out before you went to bed. You had to do that. Never go to bed angry. And sometimes that's just not practical. Sometimes you do need to step away, calm yourself down, reassess things, and then go back and try to figure out what the answer is. But both parties have to be calm and in a good spot. As if you're not, it just snowballs. And I think there's a lot of tools that you can get to keep the snowball from growing and becoming huge. And then next thing you know, you're in an avalanche because it's just everything keeps going. And one of the things that she said is you have a sack on your back, and every single thing you put into that sack on your back, and you don't do anything. You just keep putting stuff in this sack until the sack becomes so heavy you break. So I had to learn not to put stuff in my sack and to deal with it at the moment, because otherwise you're not dealing with things that you should be dealing with, but also when it becomes so heavy, you don't even know where to start, and it's just too much. And then it seems like you have a mountain to climb instead of a little hill. So if you deal with them when they're little hills, it's better. So I have tried to do that in my life, to do little things. Another thing that I was told that I still use today is if you don't bring it up in 7 days, it doesn't matter. I see a lot of people bringing stuff up that happened 10, 15 years ago, 2 months ago, 6 months ago. If you do not solve it in 7 days, you have to let it go. Because constantly going back and revisiting things is not helpful. So give yourself that. I really love that. And I use it a lot. 7 days. It's been more than 7 days. I didn't address it. Let it go. And you have to be okay with that to really let it go. But harboring resentment and guilt and that is not a good thing to have. So try to resolve things quickly, and then it doesn't become this big mountain.
I like the 7-day approach. I haven't heard that for two reasons. One, it forces you to speak up. So, like we just said, if you internalize it and you think about it and you think about it, if you know, okay, tomorrow's day 7, I have to talk about this today or I have to let it go, it forces that conversation to happen, which is probably a good thing. And then also, I like it because I think we've all had somebody bring something up, or we've maybe done it, about, well, 5 years ago you did this and I'm still mad at you for it. And we can't ever live it down and move on. And it's like, I've apologized for that. We've moved on from that. Why are you bringing it up again as an example of something? And I think that is great to, everybody is human. We make mistakes. We need a fresh start. We don't need to have stuff brought up from, 10 years ago that you said, like,
Exactly.
7 days, let's start over. So I think that's a great
Yeah.
way to have a timeline for that.
And there's a big difference this is another thing that I learned. There's a big difference between solving a problem and manipulation. And a lot of people use it as manipulation. And my ex did use a lot of it as manipulation. And he went back very far, real, in 2010, you did this and you said that, and now you're doing this and you're saying that, and you haven't changed. Well, no, I haven't, because I'm still the same me, but that was then, this is now, it's not the same. And so people will use things against you as tools to try to manipulate you to do what they want you to do. And it's a pitfall. You have to really be careful of those. And if somebody brings something up to me that happened more than 7 days ago that they want to solve it, I try very hard to say, it's over, it's done, let's not let it go, because we can't go back there. Because it's like a hamster wheel. You just keep going round and around and around, and you've got to at some point cut it off and be done.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's talk about the stigma of therapy in the cancer community. What do you feel like the stigma is, and what do you feel like is being done or has been done to break it or could be done?
I think in a lot of cancers, there isn't a stigma on therapy. I think that they encourage it. But those are the cancers, the more popular cancers, the cancers where you have a lot of disfigurement, like breast cancer is one, or some skin cancers where they're taking off large things that you are now don't look the same. But I think people think that that's okay to get therapy for. If a breast cancer loses a breast, it's okay for her to go get therapy for that because it's a huge loss. In our world, I don't think people realize that loss of vision is a real loss. Loss of an eye is a huge loss. Well, you'll get a prosthetic and you'll be fine. Oh, well, you still have your eye. You look good. It's not helpful to anybody. So I think people think, well, you look good. Why do you need therapy? You're doing fine. Why do you need therapy? And I think even doctors think that. I wish doctors would send patients newly diagnosed to a therapist as well as a medical oncologist right when they're diagnosed, because this is a big, heavy cancer to live with. And I'm a lucky one that my eye does not look any different, except it's a little off center, but it takes a lot for someone to notice that my eye's not on center. But there are other people that have a lot of issues. If they had an enucleation, their prosthetic doesn't fit right. Therapy would be good, because when you look at yourself in the mirror and you don't look like the way you used to, it's hard. When your eye doesn't operate the way it used to, it's difficult. And so I think there is a stigma in our cancer because we look good. We look fine. Well, what's the matter? You're fine. You don't have meds. You're fine. It's not that. It's the long-term thing. And I don't know if there's a person out there who could just put that away until they get the scans. It creeps in. It creeps in every time you're going to get a scan. It creeps in when you are having I call it a bad eye day. When my eye is acting up and it's hard for me to concentrate, and it's just irritating me all day long. People don't talk about those things, and I think that's sad that doesn't happen. So I wish that in our cancer, more people would make it a normal thing, not, well, what do you mean? Well, I guess I could send you to somebody. Those are the comments that I hear in the community, that we should be fine. Oh, you're gonna be fine. How do we know? And how do you tell your brain that? How does your brain shut off? Oh, we're gonna be fine, brain. Quit.
Definitely. That's hard to grapple with when someone's telling you you're going to be fine, but you don't actually believe it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think to get over the stigma is just being honest with people and telling them, I am not fine. Thank you for telling me I look good, but that's not what it's about. What it's about is that I'm worried about my future. I'm worried about this. I can't do the things I used to do. And I think if we all are honest, then the stigmas will go away. But a patient should never feel bad about going in for therapy, because it's a natural thing.
Definitely. I think that's such a great point. In your therapy journey, did you ever hit a point where you felt like you had grown enough that you wanted to try a different kind of therapy or maybe stop altogether? Did you ever hit that point?
I did. I hit a point where I thought I couldn't go any farther in that because there wasn't anything else for me to talk about. I was just kind of done talking about it. But when you get to a point when you're talked out, I think is it. You figure out I don't have anything else to say. I feel good. I feel stable again. I feel like I can go do this. I don't feel like I need check-ins. And with my therapy, we started off, once a week, and then it went to every 2 weeks, and then I went to once a month. And I stayed at once a month for a while. And then I just felt like I had gotten all I could get out of that. I didn't go back into any other kind of therapy, but other people I know have. They've done some other things. They've done some therapy that involved, meditation and spiritual healing and those sort of things, which are all perfectly valid next steps. I did not do that mainly because it wasn't available to me. Where I lived, it wasn't a thing. So it wasn't something I could just seek out. But the, spiritual counseling, spiritual healing is something some people went into more trauma therapy where they were learning how to deal with traumas, not just ocular melanoma, but past. So I think everybody is going to evolve on their own time. And some people will just be able to know when to stop and be done. And some people will stay in it for their lifetime. And whichever way that is perfectly okay. There's no right or wrong answer here. But also, if you feel like this therapy you're stuck in, maybe try some other things. Try some more internal work, spiritual type work. I'm not talking about prayer and religious learning. I'm talking about looking inside yourself, healing yourself spiritually.
That's
Um,
shadow work.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so you know
Yes.
about that.
Heal that. Yes. Heal that inner child, guys.
Yeah, I think it's great. It was not available to me where I live. I still don't live in an area where I can find that. So I could do some stuff online, but I read some books a little bit. I was referred a book by Mel Robbins, Let Them. That helped me a lot. That's probably the best therapy book I've ever had was that one because I was raised in a Midwestern type family that what will the neighbors think? Well, you can't talk about that. What will the neighbors think? And that's a big thing of mine. It's a trigger. Oh my God, what does everybody think? What's people thinking about me? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said that or did that. What are they thinking about me? And in the reality, most people aren't even thinking about you. And it was a really good book to read, just to let them go on, do what they say. And my ex-husband used to tell me all the time, it's none of your business what people think of you. Well, yes, it is. This is my reputation. What will the neighbors think? So I had to retrain my brain to who cares what the neighbors think. But that was hard. And I didn't do that in therapy. I did that on my afterwards because I didn't know it was an issue. And then I realized, oh, this is a big issue.
Yeah, that is a hard one. I actually did take a workshop where it was called The Game of Life. And basically, the point of it is you stay on your own game board. We all have a game board. We all have obstacles and objectives and things that we are doing, and you stay on your board. And you don't go play on someone else's board. You stay on your board. And there are times that somebody else will be kind of stressing me out, and for whatever reason, I think I feel like I need to help people more than I do. And so when somebody's spiraling, I'm like, I take on that stress of, oh, I have to help them. And then I have to remind myself, no, I don't. Like, I'm on my board. If they want to figure it out, if they want something, they can find it. But I need to stay on my board. And it always calms me down because every time I get overwhelmed and I put myself back on my board and I say, oh, all I have to worry about is me, then all of a sudden my load goes away and it's so much lighter. And I'm like, oh, I just have to worry about myself. Ah, what a novel concept.
Yeah, right. But I think as women, and I mean, here we're also going to have men and women are going to differ in this. Women tend to be caretakers, nurturers, fixers. I'm a huge fixer. I want to fix everything. I want to fix everybody. I want to adopt every stray animal.
Actually, men are big fixers too, though. So I think men will relate to that too. They don't
Yeah,
want to listen, they want to fix.
but they want to
Right,
fix it in
men?
their way. Yeah, exactly. They want to fix in their way, and they don't like loss of control. And there's all these other things that differ. But I think women, we tend to get in other people's business a little too much because we want to help, and we think we're helping, and we are not helping.
That's
Stay out of
very true.
because it's not
Yes.
helpful.
And that, especially when the help you're offering is pull yourself up by your bootstraps and put on a happy face, it's going to be fine. And then they're like, that's not helpful at all. Please leave me alone.
Yes, yes. What is it? You're struggling. You look good. Your eye looks good. Yeah, well, try living with this eye. It might look good, but and it's funny because I have hooded eyes. It's a genetic trait in my family, and my ocular melanoma eye looks better than my non-ocular melanoma eye. So everybody always thinks my good eye is my OM eye because my lid is drooping more on my good eye. And I was talking to some ocular plastics doctor, and they were marveling at my eye being put back together well, and what a good job they did. And I'm thinking, but it's off center. And they're like, oh, but it's good for what I've seen. Other doctors, I've seen them. I mean, they're pointing this way. They got to go back in and redo surgeries. And I do know some of our patients have had to go in and have another surgery. But I think sometimes also we get so caught up in what we don't have and what our own insecurities of how we look that other people don't see it. And so even though people are saying, oh, but you look so good, sometimes I think we don't believe it, and we need to start doing that as well. So that's kind of a double-edged sword. We are overly critical of ourselves, which then tends to give us more insecurities, which gives us more anxiety, which makes dealing with situations a little bit differently. So when somebody comes up to you and says, but your eye looks so good, you just say thank you. And don't hold a resentment against them. They don't understand. And you don't need to educate every single person. I think that's a big pitfall I hear people talk about. Well, I just told them that is not what the problem is. And then what happens is people were like, whoa, I didn't ask for that. I was just trying to give you a compliment. So if somebody offers you something, take it. If they offer you a compliment, take it. Don't psychoanalyze it. Don't read more into it. Don't let it trip up your day. You just say thank you and go on. Because they're not going to ever understand.
Yes, and just like you said before, when you feel like people are judging you and looking at you, they're not. They're so worried about themselves and everyone who's looking at them, and no one's looking at them either. And I think if we can all realize nobody cares. I mean, look around the room next time you're in a room and think like, do you care what anyone's wearing? Do you think anybody is like, oh my God, their hair is just a mess today? Like, no. You just see people around you, and you probably see beautiful people around you. And when they look at you, that's what they see. But when you look at yourself, it's, oh, I need to whiten my teeth. I have flyaways. I need, my wrinkles are showing. Nobody sees it but you. So yeah, try to let those things go. I think that is really hard, but really important.
It is. And, I use this expression a lot to give them grace. Please give me grace, and I will give you grace. Because I'm going to do and say things that I probably shouldn't do and say often. Give me grace, because I don't ever mean it maliciously, or sometimes my brain gets ahead of, or my mouth gets ahead of my brain, and I don't always think things through. Or I'll stop in the middle of a thought because something catches my eye, and then that thought dangles, and it's not anything what I meant. What happened to us this weekend with the whole pancake thing? I said I didn't eat as much as you guys, and then I paused. I didn't mean that it was a competition. I didn't mean that I was better. I meant, then when I got distracted, I was like, oh no, that's not what I meant. What I meant was, I'm afraid to eat this pancake that is so good because I don't want to be in a carb coma and have to drive 6 hours home. But, there's times when things can be misinterpreted, and you have to give yourself grace, and you have to ask other people to give you grace, because sometimes you're just ridiculous and you realize it, that you're just being ridiculous. And I think that has to do with self-growth and doing therapy, is to know when you are just being ridiculous, and to check yourself. Because it's not always the other person. Sometimes it's you. Maybe you're too sensitive. Maybe you are overreacting. And I think that therapy helps you recognize those parts to where you can just be like, oops, sorry.
Yeah. And I was only teasing you about the pancake.
I know, but
It was in good fun.
it wasn't. But it was just a good example of sometimes how you think you're coming across isn't really how other people are seeing you, but you have to give yourself grace when you do that. And that was the only example I could come up with. But
No,
you know,
that's very true. I'll give a little example that just happened to me yesterday. I was in a group message and I wasn't responding because it was like directives were given out in this group message. Hey, do this, post this, do this. And so, okay, done. All of it done. And the organizer of it said, I am frustrated because you guys are not answering and I feel like I'm just talking into a void. And I said, I'm really sorry. I didn't want to ping the entire group with okay when I could just go do it. I thought it was more you were just telling us what you needed. So thank you for telling us what you needed, that you need a response, because I did not respond because I didn't want to annoy everyone on this group text. And she's sitting here going, why are none of you responding? You guys are so rude. And it was we were all just trying not to be rude.
but and that is one thing. Written word gets misconstrued so easily.
It does.
So easily. But that's part of the knowing you and knowing yourself and being able to give yourself grace. Oh, messed up, sorry. And also communication. I think we really didn't talk about this with therapy, but that's one of the things I learned about myself was how to communicate better, how to express my needs, because I was not raised to do that. I was raised, you don't have needs. You are here to serve the needs of everyone else, not your own. That's selfish, and it's not selfish. You have to, and I used to say this to everybody. You cannot help somebody else if your cup is empty. You can have nothing left to pour into theirs. So you need to take care of yourself. But I was the worst person at taking that advice. I would take care of everybody else and not take care of myself.
Yep. It can be hard to do if you're not used to it. And I think also if you have people that live with you, whether it's children or a spouse or, older parents that live with you, it can be really difficult because you feel like you have to put your focus somewhere else first.
And this is for another episode way down the line, but I'll just touch on a little bit, especially for those caregivers out there. You can't be a good caregiver if your cup is not full. I was a caregiver to my mother while I was going through not just ocular melanoma, but also another big medical thing. And it was very hard to be a good caregiver to her when I couldn't be a good caregiver to myself. And I think it's okay for both caregivers and for the patients to ask for breaks. Caregivers get sick of hearing this. And I think that therapy gives you an outlet to talk about it so that you're not talking about it to all your friends and your family.
That's a good point. All right, everyone, we're going to wrap up there and we will see you all on the next episode.